Good afternoon. I'm going to talk this afternoon for 5-10 minutes to introduce the concept for the panel on addressing the vaccine confidence gap. There are a number of issues in the context of the risk conference this week that are about different aspects of confidence. Vaccines is one of them. In the mix of, I was looking around at energy, at the environment, at climate change, a breadth of issues. And where do vaccines fit into this broader environment of risk analysis, risk communication, and confidence? Confidence is a fundamental issue across areas of risk, and I'll set the stage a bit in the next 10 minutes for the panel that will follow on vaccine confidence. The vaccine confidence gap is it's a global issue. As many of you know, if you've read the newspaper in a number of different settings or listened to people in the supermarket or wherever, there are growing questions in certain populations about whether we need vaccines, whether they're good, whether they're safe, whether we need so many, whether we need them at the time they're asked for. And the question is, how do we communicate and how do we listen and build a better dialogue with the growing number of questions and the scientific evidence to come to the best public health solution? These aren't local questions. We have them in countries around the world. I've put a slide up here that looks at the fact that these are not only local, but they're also traveling and influencing other countries. We have the experience of the tetanus vaccine having provoked fears of sterilization in the 1980s that emerged in Mexico and traveled to the Philippines and then to Africa and back to South America. We have examples of the MMR and autism concerns that came out of the UK and have teamed up also with some concerns in the US and other countries around thimerosal and autism, and now the emergence of anti-vaccination groups in South Africa that are related to MMR, and we're seeing ripples in other countries around the world. These don't happen overnight. These are slow burn spreads that emerge and pop up depending on areas of low confidence where they can emerge. We also have the issue where one concern about a vaccine, one confidence gap about a vaccine, such as the tetanus one, feeds into concerns about another one. In the early 2003, 2004, we had a boycott of the polio vaccine in northern Nigeria. Well, that was part of the concern, was remembering the tetanus and sterilization concerns and fears, and how did they relate to polio. Who's not trusting? Well, some of this is coming from parents. Some of it, as in the case of northern Nigeria, was religious leaders, adults, civil society groups. And one of the emerging concerns is that it's also among physicians and health workers in some settings. We know from a good bit of the research around the inadequate uptake of the H1N1 vaccine that in a lot of cases the health workers themselves were not taking H1N1 vaccines, which made it even more difficult for the populations to be confident that it was a good thing. And then there's politicians who are also sometimes questioning, as influenced by their populations, but also not always convinced by the evidence. How do we address these concerns? And why do we have them? Well, sometimes the questions that come up around vaccine safety and inadequate confidence are related to some legitimate safety concerns. Every medical intervention has some level of risk, and some of the reason we're seeing all this emerging questioning and confidence is that we haven't, as a public health community, been totally honest with the public, and in an effort to be positive and engaging, say, it's great, you should take it, it's very good for your child, for yourself, and indeed it is, and there's been a history of success about it, but there are some risks, and they're very minor compared to the benefit, but we have to be more transparent about that. And we have to be honest in this, and that's raised some of the questions. There are adverse events, again, minor, but some of the questioning by parents are related to things that they hear about, so there are legitimate questions and concerns. Some of them are about the relevance of vaccines. Do we still need them? The populations are healthy. We don't see so much disease anymore. In a sense, we have an overconfidence in our public health. Sometimes in poorer countries, we say, well, do we need that new vaccine? We don't even have enough of the old ones to go around. Some of these are questions about whether or not we need them, not just about the safety. And often we have other underlying questions about vaccines that actually aren't about the vaccine. They're about other underlying issues related to confidence in the health system, confidence in the government, questions about science in the broader realm of public trust in science, which we face in a number of areas of our risk work, and questions about industry, private sector, any realm of other influences that can also influence the vaccine and public health agendas. What's the reality? If we look in addressing the confidence gap, what we have to address, we need to understand it. Some of the questions are not just about safety themselves, they're about policies, recommendations, new research. Some of the questions are complex. They're driven by not just scientific questions, but emotional questions, psychological questions, political issues. Some of the questions are not individual, they're group. They're networks in society. The internet, we often think of the internet as being a facilitator of the spread of information and misinformation, but actually it's a powerful vehicle for organization, self-organization of groups, both for and against vaccines. This is the reality. So questions are not just about safety. They are complex and driven by a mix of reasons, not just scientific, but political, emotional, and sociocultural. The internet is a powerful medium, and we need to look at new forms of organization that are emerging as we address it. In addressing this reality, we have to understand that communication alone is not going to fix the problem of confidence gaps. We often want to throw information at the problem rather than listening enough to understand that maybe information isn't what it will fix and address the confidence. Maybe we need to change a policy. Maybe we need to change a delivery strategy. Maybe we need to change how we engage the public, and that more information actually could backfire and undermine confidence. The levels of public trust in society are also highly variable and context-specific. What will work in addressing confidence in one setting will not necessarily work in another setting. I think many of you know that in different fields, not just unique to vaccines. In looking at these, we've developed a bit of a model about understanding the gap to better address it. And more importantly, we've had a tendency in the last decade to be putting out fires, to be only realizing that there was a confidence problem when it became a crisis, when it became a crisis of people stopping vaccination, when it became a crisis because all of a sudden there's an outbreak of a vaccine-preventable disease, which flagged an underlying confidence problem. We need to be better at understanding and where are the early predictors, what are the early signals of discontent, of lack of confidence in order to address them better. We have a website that we've developed at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine called vaccineconfidence.org. You can learn more about it there. But I'd like to turn over to the panel. I look forward to hearing about the discussion today and understanding the vaccine confidence gap so we can better address it. Thank you.